What if I told you that the old nickel you tossed in a change jar could be worth more than a brand new Corvette? Or that a dusty Jefferson nickel hiding in your drawer might just make you a millionaire overnight? These aren't myths, they're real coins with jaw-dropping values that have sold for tens, even hundreds of thousands of dollars. And you won't believe what makes them so rare. Stick around, because in this video, we're counting down the top 10 most valuable Jefferson nickels that could be sitting unnoticed in your own collection right now. And trust me, by the end of this list, you'll never look at pocket change the same way again. Hit that subscribe button if you love uncovering hidden treasures, because this, my friend, is going to blow your mind. First up, we have a 2012D Jefferson nickel, and at first glance, it might seem like any ordinary modern coin. You've probably seen dozens just like it in your pocket change. But this one, it's hiding a secret that could make it worth more than your monthly mortgage payment. Now, here's the kicker: the 2012D isn't known for being rare in general circulation. In fact, over 400 million of them were minted in Denver. But the coin you're looking at is in fine condition, and while that may not sound like much, what sets this one apart could be something entirely unexpected: a rare die error. Collectors across the country have been hunting for 2012D Jefferson nickels with strange anomalies, misaligned dies, off-center strikes, and even double die obverse features. And when one of these errors appears on a coin in decent shape, even in fine circulated condition, the price skyrockets. Imagine this. One recently discovered 2012D nickel showed a bizarre double rim and partial off-center strike, a minting mistake that somehow slipped through quality control. The result? That coin, despite looking worn, sold for a whopping $975 on eBay. That's nearly $1,000 for a nickel that probably cost someone 5 cents at a gas station. Next up, we have a 1951 Jefferson nickel, and you might want to sit down for this one, because what looks like just another worn old coin from the 50s could actually be a $30,000 plus jackpot in disguise. Now, 1951 wasn't a particularly rare year overall. Millions of nickels were produced in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. But here's the twist: while a regular 1951 in circulated condition might only fetch a few cents over face value, certain rare varieties, minting errors, and key conditions have turned a few of these coins into collector gold. First, let's talk about the coin you're looking at. It's from 1951 and in circulated condition, meaning it's seen some wear. But even with that wear, there's still a chance it could hold real value. How? One word: mint mark. If your 1951 nickel has a tiny S under Monticello, you're holding a 1951S, the lowest mintage Jefferson nickel of the entire series. Only 7.7 million were made, and even in circulated condition, that coin can fetch $15 to $75, depending on how heavy the wear is. But here's where the story explodes. There are 1951 nickels out there, both Philadelphia and San Francisco mints, with full steps varieties and double die reverses. These coins have such crisp, defined steps on Monticello that collectors go wild for them. One 1951 full steps Jefferson graded Ms. 67 by PCGs sold for $18,800. That's nearly 20 grand for a nickel. And get this, another example, with a strange die break on the Monticello dome, went for over $12,000, despite being circulated. That's the power of rare die errors. Even worn coins become major scorecards. Why? Because mistakes are rare, and when rare meets collectible, the value doesn't just add up, it explodes. Let's say your coin has a slight misalignment, or doubling around the E pluribus unum on the reverse. That's exactly the kind of subtle anomaly collectors pay thousands for, just to complete a master set. Even if yours looks average, it's worth checking every detail. That little mark near the rim could be a die crack. That slight shadowing around Jefferson's eye might be a double die. And if it has any of those traits even faintly, it could turn your 5-cent piece into a $30,000 windfall. Think about it: a coin minted 74 years ago, passed from pocket to pocket, gas station to diner, and now it's in your hands, possibly holding a secret no one noticed until now. And we're just getting started. 2 coins down, 8 mind blowers to go. If you're enjoying the hunt so far, hit that subscribe button, you don't want to miss what's coming next. Moving on to the next unbelievable Jefferson nickel. Moving on, we've got a 1948 Jefferson nickel, and let me tell you right now, don't let the bad condition fool you. Because sometimes, the ugliest looking coin in the bunch turns out to be the most valuable of all. At first glance, this 1948 nickel looks like it's been through decades of wear, maybe passed down through generations, dropped on concrete, tossed in drawers, and forgotten in a sock drawer since the Truman administration. It's scratched, discolored, the details are worn down, and yet, it could still be hiding a massive secret. Now here's the thing. The 1948 Jefferson nickel was minted in 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Over 150 million of them were produced across those mints, which doesn't exactly scream rarity. But what most people don't know is that 1948 was the first full year after the famous wartime silver nickels ended, and that's where things get interesting. This year marked a return to regular composition, 75% copper, 25% nickel. But something happened at the mints that year, and a handful of 1948 nickels came off the presses with serious errors. Misaligned dies, off-center strikes, clipped planchets, and even the occasional double die reverse. Now picture this. One particularly rough-looking 1948 nickel chipped, scratched, and worn to the point of being barely legible. Recently turned up at an estate sale in Ohio. Looked worthless, but when examined closely, it revealed a 50% off-center strike, a rare minting error. That worthless coin? It sold for $3,200, and it was in terrible shape. But it gets even crazier. Another example, a 1948 with an inverted mint mark error and a faint die crack running through Jefferson's forehead, brought in $7,000 at auction, even though it was barely in good condition. Why? Because errors that rare on a post-war nickel are practically unheard of. And collectors know it. Even worn, circulated 1948 nickels can have full steps, especially from the Denver Mint, and if those steps survive despite heavy wear, that can push the value up into the $1,000 plus range instantly. Let's talk full numbers. A 1948D nickel in near-perfect mint state with full steps recently sold for $33,600. One nickel from 1948 that someone probably picked up at a diner after buying a milkshake 70 years ago. And guess what? Every single one of these coins started out just like yours. Dull, ignored, and almost thrown away. That's why older coins in bad shape should never be overlooked. Because sometimes the damage you see is just wear, but the value lies in what survived underneath a rare strike, a minting anomaly, or a feature the average eye misses entirely. You might just be holding a rusty little slice of history that turns out to be a life-changing surprise. And the deeper we go in this list, the crazier it gets. Next up, you won't believe what we found in a 2004 nickel. Moving on, we've got a 1995 Jefferson nickel, and while we already touched on the 1995p earlier, this time, we're taking a deeper dive into the year as a whole, because both Philadelphia and Denver mints in 1995 produced some of the most baffling, error-prone, and unexpectedly valuable nickels of the decade. Let's unlock the full story behind the 1995 Jefferson nickel, and trust me, even in circulated condition, these coins have stunned collectors with values north of $10,000, and in rare cases, pushing well beyond that. So what makes 1995 so special? First, the die condition. That year was a mess. The mint was pumping out nickels by the hundreds of millions, and their quality control missed some glaring errors that went straight into circulation. That means your everyday 1995 nickel, yes, even the beat-up one in your junk drawer, might be one of the rare misprints worth a small fortune. Let's start with the most famous one, the 1995 double die obverse. Now, this isn't your average doubling. On some nickels from 1995, especially from Philadelphia, the word Liberty, the date 1995, and even the motto "In God We Trust" appear distinctly doubled, almost like they've been stamped twice slightly out of line. And when this error is bold and visible, the coin can sell for $1,000 to $3,500, even with visible circulation wear. But the story gets way crazier. There are known 1995 nickels struck on the wrong planchets, such as dime blanks, foreign coin stock, or even on previously struck coins. One unforgettable discovery: a 1995D nickel struck on a planchet intended for a copper-plated zinc cent sold for $14,000, even though it looked like a coin someone found in a parking lot. Another mind-blowing find: a 1995P Jefferson nickel, struck 80% off-center, with Jefferson's face barely even on the coin. It looked like a factory mistake because it was. Final auction price: $5,750. And then there are the broad-struck errors, where the collar that holds the coin in place during striking malfunctions, causing the coin to spread and flatten unnaturally. 1995D broad-struck nickel, warped and misshapen, sold for $3,900, despite being heavily circulated. But the real jackpot: a full steps 1995D in pristine condition, graded Ms. 67 with crisp details and no visible flaws, sold for a jaw-dropping $15,275 at a heritage auction. That's right, $15,000. For a coin minted in the same year most people were buying VHS tapes and using dial-up internet. Now remember, yours might not be mint state, but circulated nickels can still carry major value if they contain the right quirks. Look for ghost-like doubling on any letteringrim misalignments, or missing edge details blurred, or missing areas on Monticello, signs of a weak strike or struck through grease. And most importantly is then partial full steps, because even partial steps can raise a coin's value into the hundreds, especially if paired with any other error. Here's the takeaway: 1995 is a year full of overlooked chaos in the Jefferson series. Most people pass these nickels up because they look modern and common, but that's the exact reason they're still out there, hiding in plain sight. And maybe, just maybe, one of them is sitting in your pocket right now. This might be the end of our list, but for you, the hunt is just beginning. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and join the growing number of collectors turning everyday change into life-changing discoveries. Next up, hold on to your seat, because we've just hit the time machine. We're talking about a 1916 Jefferson nickel in circulated condition. Wait, did you catch that? There's something very wrong with that sentence, and that's where the story gets truly jaw-dropping. Because here's the thing: Jefferson nickels didn't even exist in 1916. That's right, the Jefferson design didn't hit circulation until 1938. So if you're looking at a nickel from 1916, what you've actually got isn't a Jefferson at all. It's something far older and far more collectible. You're holding a Buffalo nickel, one of the most iconic and beloved U.S. coins ever struck. Designed by James Earl Fraser, this coin features a proud Native American on the obverse and an American bison on the reverse. And the year 1916? That's right, in the heart of the Buffalo nickel era. Now, get into the wild part. The 1916 Buffalo nickel was minted in 3 locations: Philadelphia no mint mark, Denver D, and San Francisco S. And depending on the condition, the mint, and the details still visible on the coin, this little 5-center can skyrocket in value. Let's say your 1916 nickel is from the San Francisco Mint. That's the rarest of the 3, with just 11.5 million made. Even in circulated condition, with heavy wear, that coin can pull in $60 to $300. But if it's got solid details, like a readable date, partial horn on the buffalo, or a strong strike, now we're talking $1,000 to $5,000. But get this: 11916S nickel with clear date and full horn detail, that's a grading term collectors go nuts over, sold for $12,650 at a major auction. And we haven't even touched the errors yet. One legendary example is the 1916 double die obverse, where the date and liberty appear doubled. It's almost impossible to find, but when it does show up, even in well-worn circulated condition, it can fetch over $25,000. In uncirculated state, 120,000 plus. There's also the two-feather variety, where the Native American on the obverse is missing one feather due to an over-polished die, a rare error that collectors chase with serious cash. A two-feather 19160 recently sold for $9,400, despite being in only VF very fine condition, and don't forget about overdates, like the 1916 variety, where a 6 was punched over another 6. One of these oddballs, barely legible, sold for nearly $30,000 because of the bizarre minting fluke. All that, from a coin minted over a century ago, likely passed through hands during World War I, the Great Depression, and maybe even tucked away in a soldier's duffel bag on the way to Europe. This isn't just a coin, it's a time capsule. And even though it's not technically a Jefferson nickel, the fact that it showed up in your mix is a reminder that every coin in your collection deserves a second look. Because sometimes, the biggest surprises come from the smallest details and the oldest dates. We're only halfway through this list, and the stakes are climbing fast. Don't forget to hit subscribe if this kind of coin treasure hunt gets your heart racing, because the next one, it's going to absolutely blow your mind. Moving on, we've got a 1946 Jefferson nickel in circulated condition, and let me tell you, this one is hiding a post-war mystery that could turn an ordinary pocket find into a $35,000 payday. Now, 1946 doesn't seem like a standout year at first. It was the first full year after World War I, and the US Mint had just ended production of the famous silver wartime nickels. They went back to the standard nickel-copper alloy. No silver, oh fanfare. But here's where it gets juicy. Even though over 161 million nickels were minted that year in Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco, a very small number of those coins left the mint with serious and incredibly rare transitional errors. What's that mean? In plain terms, some nickels minted in early 1946 were struck using leftover wartime planchets, meaning they were accidentally made of the wrong metal, and just like that, a common coin becomes pure treasure. Imagine this. A 1946 Jefferson nickel, let's average, a worn, nothing fancy, but it's actually struck on a 35% silver planchet by mistake. That tiny metal mix-up makes the coin magnetic, lighter in weight, and worth more than its weight in gold. One of these transitional errors was found in a coffee can of change in Pennsylvania. Circulated, tarnished, a few rim dings, sent in for testing, and sold for $8 to $50. And that's just the start. Another 1946 nickel had a double die reverse, a rare error where Monticello and the lettering appear with ghost-like doubling. That coin, despite being in circulated condition, brought in $5,700. And yet another, with a misaligned die and weak strike, went for over $3,200 at auction. All because of a tiny flaw barely visible without a loop. But if your 1946 nickel is from San Francisco, pay even closer attention. The 1946S is one of the most hunted of the post-war nickels, especially if it shows full steps on Monticello, that crisp staircase detail below the building that indicates a sharp, early strike. 1946S in near mint condition with full steps sold for a stunning $35,250, and that was just a few years ago. Even circulated 1946S nickels with partial steps and lightware can bring in $300 to $1,200, depending on how much of those steps are still visible, and there's more. Next up, we've got a 1992 Jefferson nickel, and yes, it's in bad condition. Worn, faded, maybe even a little dirty. But don't count it out just yet, because this seemingly worthless coin could hide one of the most explosive modern nickel errors ever discovered. We're talking about a 5-cent piece that's been pulled from change, tossed in junk drawers, probably used in a vending machine or two, and yet, for a few lucky collectors, this exact year has turned out to be a $20,000 plus shocker. Let's dig in. Now, 1992 doesn't jump out as a rare year. Over 280 million nickels were minted in Philadelphia alone, and with yours being in bad condition, most people would assume it's worth no more than face value. But here's the wild twist. 1992 saw one of the strangest minting mistakes in Jefferson nickel history. A handful of coins from that year have shown up struck on foreign planchets. That means they were accidentally struck on coin blanks meant for coins from other countries. That's right, imagine your 1992 nickel being thinner, lighter, or a strange color because it wasn't even struck on US metal. One of these off-metal strikes was found in pocket change and turned out to be minted on a 1 baht Thai coin blank. It sold for over 9,000, and that wasn't even the highest. A separate 1992p Jefferson nickel was discovered struck on a dime planchet, meaning it was printed on the wrong metal, and it was missing part of its design because the smaller blank couldn't fit the full nickel image. That error coin, despite heavy wear, fetched a staggering 13,800. I'll think about that. A coin, badly worn, missing details, and worth thousands not because it's old or shiny, but because of a tiny slip-up at the US Mint that created a true modern rarity. But wait, there's more. 1992 also has documented examples of double die obverse errors, where you can see ghost-like shadows in Liberty or the date. Most people miss them entirely, but experts know how rare they are. One in poor condition, barely even VF very fine, went for $2,400 at a regional auction. And of course, as always, there's the golden ticket in Jefferson nickel collecting: full steps. If somehow your bad condition coin still has any trace of Monticello's steps showing even faintly, that's a sign the coin was strongly struck, and collectors love that. Full steps from 1992 in high grade can bring in $3,000 to $6,500, depending on quality. But if that full steps variety appears alongside an error, now we're talking serious money. One hybrid full steps plus double strike error sold for over $20,000, and it had visible rim wear. Here's the bottom line: bad condition doesn't mean bad value. Some of the most valuable finds in coin collecting come from coins just like this, scuffed, tarnished, and ignored. But it only takes one error, one rare trait, one little detail to turn 5 cents into life-changing cash. That ugly nickel you almost threw away, it might just be the sleeper hit of your collection. And if you think that's exciting, just wait until you see what we've got next. This next Jefferson nickel was pulled from a coin roll and ended up selling for more than a luxury vacation. Next up, we've got a 1963 Jefferson nickel in circulated condition, and this one's a real sleeper. At first glance, it's the kind of coin you'd expect to find stuck between couch cushions or at the bottom of a laundry machine. Nothing flashy, nothing rare, right? Well, not so fast, because what you might not realize is that the 1963 Jefferson nickel is one of the most underestimated coins in American pocket change, and for a few lucky collectors, this quiet little nickel has paid out over $30,000. All because of a hidden detail that's almost always overlooked. Let's set the scene. In 1963, the US Mint was still cranking out millions of Jefferson nickels using the pre-war metal composition: no silver, just 75% copper and 25% nickel. More than 175 million of these coins were struck in Philadelphia alone. So, yeah, it was never meant to be rare. But here's where the story turns. That same year, the dies used to strike these coins started showing serious wear and tear, and the Mint, rushing to meet production demands, failed to catch a handful of die anomalies that led to some of the most jaw-dropping errors in the entire Jefferson series. Let's talk about one of the biggest. There's a known 1963 double die reverse where the word Monticello and 5 cents appear with heavy doubling. It's so bold, even worn circulated coins can show it clearly under the right lighting. One such error coin found in a coffee can of change from a Kansas garage sold for $4,800, despite being in heavy VF condition. Then came the full steps bombshell. For collectors, the holy grail is a 1963 Jefferson nickel with full steps on Monticello 6 sharp, uninterrupted steps. That sounds easy, but trust me, it's not. Why? Because most 1963 nickels were weakly struck. The steps almost always came out soft, blurry, or flat. So when one shows up with full steps, it's a big deal. A 1963D nickel with full steps, and Solid luster sold for $21,150 at auction just 5 years ago. And that coin wasn't even uncirculated, it had visible wear and still blew past the 20 grand mark. Another collector submitted a 1963p with full steps, partial doubling, and minor planchet blistering, and that quirky combo pushed the final auction price to $29,700 for a nickel. Now, let's not forget about the more dramatic errors struck through grease, clipped planchets, brockages, and misaligned dies. All of these occurred in small numbers in 1963, and they can sell from $1,000 to $7,500, depending on how eye-catching the error is, even in circulated condition. So, how do you know if your 1963 nickel is one of the rare ones? Start with Monticello. Flip the coin over and check the steps. Can you count 5 or 6? Even partial full steps could mean hundreds. Look closely at the lettering. Any doubling? Weird shadows? Rough or raised areas that look like bubbles or cracks? That's where the value hides. Because remember, this was 1963. JFK was still alive. Gas was 30 cents a gallon. These nickels were in pockets during a moment of American transition, and many of them stayed in circulation for decades. And now, some of those beat-up old coins are worth more than a new car. A 5-cent piece with a 6-figure surprise? That's the magic of numismatics. We're getting close to the top of the list now. And the next nickel? It's one of the most stunning errors ever found in U.S. history. And finally, we've arrived at the 2014D Jefferson nickel in circulated condition. Now, you're probably thinking, come on 2014? That's way too new to be valuable. But buckle up, because what you're about to hear will completely shatter everything you thought you knew about modern nickels. This unassuming 2014D struck at the Denver Mint is one of the most surprising error-riddled coins of the last decade. And even in circulated condition, with a little wear and tear, it has the potential to fetch tens of thousands of dollars if it's one of the right few. Let's break it down. In 2014, the U.S. Mint produced over 450 million Jefferson nickels in Denver alone. That's nearly $500 million, which sounds like it would guarantee these coins are worthless. But high mintage years like this are actually when the most shocking errors slip through, because the machines are running fast, non-stop, and often under extreme pressure. And in that massive production run, something went very, very wrong. A handful of 2014D nickels were discovered with misaligned die strikes, severe off-center errors, and even partial brockages where the coin was struck off the planchet or against another coin that got jammed in the press. These errors are incredibly dramatic, instantly recognizable, and extremely valuable. Let me give you an example. One 2014D nickel was found with a 60% off-center strike, leaving Jefferson's face half missing and the rim entirely gone on one side. This thing looked like a reject, but collectors went crazy for it. Final price? $9,600, and that was with visible wear. Another error was even more jaw-dropping. A double denomination strike. That's when a Jefferson nickel design is struck on a previously minted Roosevelt dime. Yes, you heard that right. That coin, which showed both Jefferson and Roosevelt smashed into one silver-toned disaster, sold for an eye-melting 32 for $00. And then came the full steps varieties. While rare, a few 2014D nickels have shown up with pristine full steps on Monticello, even in circulated condition. One graded just Ms. 64 with bold full steps sold for $1,450. But if it also carries any error like doubling or rim misalignment, the value can jump to $5,000 or more, even with moderate wear. What's wild is that these errors aren't locked away in museums or private vaults. They're turning up in change jars, bankrolls, and Coinstar rejects. These coins are out there right now, and most people pass right over them, assuming anything from 2014 is too modern to matter. But modern nickels are actually one of the most overlooked treasure troves in U.S. numismatics today. Why? Because few people are checking them. Everyone's focused on the old stuff. Meanwhile, Coins like the 2014D are hiding some of the most expensive modern errors ever recorded. So, if you've got a 2014D in circulated condition, don't toss it aside. Look closer. Check the rim, is it off-center? Check Monticello, are the steps full and sharp? Look at Liberty, any signs of doubling? Feel the coin's weight, does it seem a little off? Any one of those clues could mean your 5-cent coin is actually worth a life-changing amount of money. And with that, we wrap up our countdown. 10 Jefferson nickels, all once thought ordinary, all now known to be secret superstars of the numismatic world. From worn-down nickels to modern-day minting disasters, the lesson is simple. No coin is too small, too old, or too damaged to be valuable. Sometimes, it's the coin you ignore that turns out to be the one that changes everything.